So, this right here, here's my notes. Perfect. So, welcome everybody. My name is Mr. Lum SC. I am, that was a successful quiz raid, I would agree. I am in a hotel out of town, so I can't be doing my usual Path of Exile or Diablo 2 or whatever it is, right? I can't be doing any of that stuff. So, what I'm doing instead is I'm going to be doing a finance stream, hotel Wi-Fi hype. I'm plugged in. I've brought an Ethernet cable at least, so I'm plugged in. I have that. But I'm going to be doing a financial stream that's going to cover everything that I think is important for base finance stuff. What up, Zell? It's something that I've always just been interested in personally. I just kind of love finances. That's like one of my like hobbies is studying like retirement accounts and stuff. Yeah, cool. Cool kid. And I always end up somehow going after accountants. So, it's just one of those things that's probably why, right? Everybody wonders why I like accountants so much. It's unintentional, but maybe I'm just drawn to that style of it, whatever it is. Anyways, so we're going to kind of go in, talk about different things, and this can be for people who are just new to it, right? Somebody who is just kind of younger and just getting a job, something like that. Someone who's a little bit older and is trying to figure out how to budget, whatever it is. Or just, I feel like finances apply always through your life, and the reason that I really want to do this stream is because I feel like a lot of people are scared kind of it because it's confusing, right? There's so much information, there's so much stuff to learn, and a lot of times you look at it and you just want to not look at it, right? I know a lot of my friends that do that. They sit there and they're like, I just don't even want to see it. I just don't even want to know what's in my bank account right now because I just, I don't want to know, right? And it's like, I don't know. That drives me crazy, right? So I'm going to try and just go through in the best way. Do you think people go on Twitch to search it? I don't care. You know what? I'm going to post it on YouTube, and if this makes somebody a little bit happier or makes somebody understand finances a little bit better, awesome. Because there's a lot of people, I think it's great actually for Twitch. And once again, I don't really care if it's like, oh, it gets the whole world to come see it, right? That's fine. I think it's great because a lot of people on Twitch, I think, are in a great range to learn about it, right? Age range. And so it's best time to start learning is now. So I have pants on, bird brain. Come on. So first things, right? First things first, and we'll kind of go through. And once again, these notes are a little bit scrambled and whatever. I want to buff up my font a little bit, make it a little beefier. Okay. So first things first. Hooray, we got a job, hopefully, right? Maybe not, but we have money of some sort, maybe. Positive means, finance means, that's right. So what do we do when we have a job and money? We spend it all, right? That's the first thing that we do. That's the first thing that we don't do, which is the obvious thing, right? Sometimes this is going to be a little obvious. Use Comic Sans, great. We don't want to do this. This is a no-go. Don't do that, right? So let's say that we're taking home $40,000 a year. Let's say that we're taking home $40,000 a year. Is it really low in volume? Everybody said it was good. First thing that you have to think about with this amount, whatever your amount is, right, is that just because this is what your salary says, right, just because this is what your salary says right here, doesn't mean that's going to be what you're going to actually get to spend and take home. And it's a basic concept, right, but a lot of people still don't understand it, or a lot of people still don't really think about it or want to think about whatever it is, right? So you have to, of course, think about your first base things, such as your taxes, right? And this is just various kinds of taxes, and these, I'm going to speak from USA specific, but just know kind of within your country what those are. And it's always good to kind of look and kind of see what they are, right? So, Social Security, Medicare, right? So the base thing that you want to look for right here is like, these are what you might be paying if you live in the United States. Something like state is dependent on your state. Somewhere like Texas, Florida, I think there's like 13 states maybe or something that have no state income tax. So if you're in one of those states, congratulations. Oh, where's my tools? I want my pencil. And there we go. There's my pencil. Congratulations, you don't have state, right? But you want to look at how these things are going to be coming out of this, because this is that base paycheck, and it's great to have that, but you need to first look at this and see what is getting taken out. So what we have in America is we have tax brackets. And I don't know the exact brackets, so I'm just going to give like my rough, I think it's 25, 28%, something like that. And they're like to something around like 9,300. I think I've got something over here actually. 3,700,000. Okay, and then like, you know, beyond, right, etc. So something that you want to note with this is, and these are basically the brackets, right? This is within like a few hundred or something of these. But something that you want to note with the brackets is that this is going to be based on however much you are making, and it's going to be in a escalating form. So everybody that is here, let me get, where'd my pencil go? It keeps getting rid of my pencil. Why is it doing that? How do I have to click? Oh, I have to click off the box. Okay. So, for instance, right here you make 40,000. This doesn't mean that you are going to be taxed in this 25% bracket, right? This doesn't mean that. What this means is the first $9,300 of your paycheck, or not of your paycheck, but of your yearly salary, just pretend that says 9,300, will be taxed at 10%. The next, not 37,000, but the next amount up to 37,000 will be taxed at 15%. Then the remaining $3,000 that you have will be taxed at 25%. So it's going to be escalating down. So a lot of people have this fear. They sit there and they're making like 36,000 and they're like, awesome, and then they get a raise and it's like, you got a raise to 40,000, and they look at the tax brackets and they're like, oh no, I went from paying 15% tax to 25% tax. That's not how it works, right? You're still paying 10% here, 15% here. The 25% tax would only affect the additional beyond that 37,000 there, right? So that's the first thing that you want to kind of note in terms of your tax brackets, right? And once again, this is America specific. Might be different in other countries. Look up what it's like, but I can give you this much advice there. Okay, so that's kind of your base stuff, right? So if you're sitting at 40,000, perfect. Thank you, Pretty Shirt Spider. Thank you. There's the, yeah, you just need to put a space in there. So it makes sense, right? It's good in that regard, and you never, getting a raise is never going to affect you in a negative way, with the exception of maybe later, Duke. With the exception, it works this way in a lot of countries, yeah. With the exception of like if you're getting some sort of help, right? You're getting like income from the government, and then you get a raise, and it pushes you out of the bracket of that. In my mind, that's not a bad thing because it means you no longer need that support. You're starting to work your way up. But that's kind of, you know, for you to decide. But that's a whole separate thing that we won't get into too much for here, right? So I just want to kind of talk through the basics. But regardless, so you have your 40,000, and you go through and you get your taxes, and maybe at the end you end up with like 32,000, right? Something like that, let's just say. So let's say you paid 8,000 in tax, and that's going to cover all these things. This is federal tax, by the way. That's what this is. Then state tax is usually like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. Like in Oklahoma, it's like 7,200 is what you need for 5%. So you end up paying 1%, 2%. You end up paying about $187 or something for everything involved in these first four brackets. And then the fifth bracket is everything above. So I pay like 5% on everything that I make, basically, to the state, because it's the first 7,200 I don't pay it on. So that's state, and then Social Security and Medicare will vary a little bit. So like with Social Security, I think at about 121,000 you stop paying into it. I believe that's the cutting number. So if you're above that, any money above that doesn't get paid, doesn't get taxed Social Security. And then Medicare, if you're over 200,000, I think you pay an additional like 2% for Medicare. So those are kind of extra, just whatever little tiny numbers to kind of be added on and tacked on at the end, different rules. And there's a lot of little basic things like that. Don't need to get too bogged down in right now. So let's kind of go back to the basics here. I'm going to change my size, make it a little bigger, do an erase. This is a really slow erase. Okay, so we've gone through all of our tax brackets, and congratulations, we have $32,000 left, which means we can spend $32,000. Hooray! Well, this is where we get to the next point. After I erase, that's good enough. Good enough. Okay, so this is where we get to the not so fun part. Budgeting. Boo. Right? Nobody likes budgeting. But it's a thing that we have to do, right? Because responsibility is important, right? Having a financial mindset and thinking about things and knowing where our money's going and being able to save for things and things of that nature is actually important to do, right? Overall, in the long run, right? So Dr. Diablo pays top bracket. That's right, he does. So something that I would highly recommend, highly recommend, first thing that you do is don't just do the budget in your head. Write it down and actually know where your expenses are, what it is. Whether you want to use something, Personal Capital has a good tool. Mint is a decent tool. There's different tools that you can like bring in all of your accounts and it'll automatically keep track of that stuff for you. There's a great thing called You Need a Budget. It's like $10 or something, but it's really good. Or on the other side, you're fine in that case, B. Schneider, who even cares, right? Or you can just sit there and go through it manually and stuff like that. I haven't gotten to deductions yet, Como. I'm going to do that in a little bit. But this is just a basic idea of it. So it's all right. Or you can do it manually. But in that case, you want to go onto like Chase or wherever you have your credit cards and your statements and everything like that. If you're just using debit cards, whatever it is, go look and see what your expenses are and actually see what your expenses are. Most important thing you can do, because a lot of times you think wrong. You sit there and I say, okay, let's put some basic ones in, right? So I'll say like, what are some basic things? Rent or mortgage, bills, car, food, entertainment, alcohol, right? And then money to Llama on Twitch, right? Just the basic like budgets that everybody has in the world, right? The basic things. Everybody's got these expenses. So you sit there and I'll say, what are these things, right? And a lot of times people know what's going to be your like rent or mortgage, right? So your rent or mortgage, you might be like, oh, hey, I pay, $800 a month in that. My bills, I pay, roughly like 180, and usually you're a little bit off on that. Your car, now you're like, okay, this is gas plus insurance plus repairs, things like that. So you might, that's right, Butter. That's right. So you might, in this case, you might have a little bit lesser of an idea. Right? That's kind of a difficult thing to always gauge 100% is what's my car. But let's say, okay, I spend, plus car payment. So let's say I'm like $350 a month on that. Food, you'll say, I don't eat crazy much out and stuff, so I'm probably around like $300 a month. Entertainment, I went to the movies once and I had so I'm probably like $70 here. Alcohol, maybe 100, and I gave whatever it is, $5 to Mr. Llama, right? Whatever it is that you did for that stuff, right? So you sit there and you say, okay, here's what I think I've done, and then you go and look at your actual budget, and it usually looks something like this. It's usually 800. Bills, you're around like 200. Car, you're at like 500. Food, entertainment, you spend like $200 that month. Alcohol, you spend like $250 because you got drunk and don't remember it. And then you spent $2,000 on Mr. Llama and you didn't even know it, right? So things like this, always rounding up your expenses and down your income can help. Yeah. So in my case, like actually, or just in this, actually taking a look. I think that's the best thing, is to actually look at it and what it is, and make sure you go back and things like car, you want to start averaging out in the past, right? Because you'll sit there and you'll say, wow, and one of the biggest ones is food, right? Food is a huge one. You'll sit there and you'll say, wow, I thought I spent $300 on food this month. I actually spent $600. I've done that myself multiple times. And I sit there and like go through my budgets and look at this stuff all the time. And I'll still way overspend on food because I don't think about it. I go down and I take BYD out for a dinner and it's like below half my food budget just for that. But it was great. Got to see BYD, good time. But like, I don't think about it, right? I don't put it in my food budget when it happens. I'm just like, oh, it's just a thing, whatever, right? So I'm just doing these things. I go out to eat. I spent $10 for lunch one day. I got a $16 bill for dinner, and I'm just not adding those things up very often. It surprises you how much you'll actually spend on it. But you do this in a lot of cases. Alcohol. Oh, I only had a couple drinks. Yeah, but you ended up having a couple drinks a couple more times, and your alcohol budget went up. Entertainment, right? Car, once again, huge one's your car. You forget about all the gas and all the, so your car payment maybe, but your gas and insurance and repairs, people don't budget in repairs quite often. You need new tires every few years, and a lot of times you didn't think about the new tires, and stuff like that. And so it's like, well, that's a one-time expense, but you can average that out among your budget. So you can sit there and say, okay, it's been a year I've had my car, or a few years, and overall it's been, I've spent $4,000 on my car over a few years here. I can average that out across all the months, and my months might go up and down. Batteries die, headlights. I mean, there's a million things. Yeah, in my car, I've had my starter have to get replaced. I've had to replace my battery twice. My tires I've had to replace. I had something in my engine that was like a $2,000 fix that I had to go through. I mean, like, things like that just happen, right? So you sit there and you average it out on those sorts of things. And then things like food, you just got to start watching a little bit more. So you want to sit down and actually write it out, and either look online, right? Like I said, Mint Personal Capital, you need a budget, or more. You can just type budget into Google, and I'm sure you can find something that'll give you a general idea that you can use to sit there and put it in. Replace battery twice. I've had the car for like 7 years, so it needed a replacement when I started, and then like five years later. I also live in a really hot place, so the batteries die a little faster. It's whenever it's like summer and it's 120 degrees outside, your battery's like so whatever. But budgeting is very, 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 I am Rude Boy, very, very, very important. And I would highly recommend going through that. And this is always the first thing that you need to do. First thing you need to do is sit there and say, I have $32,000. How do I want to budget this? Because this right here isn't even taking into account savings. It's not taking into account building up your emergency fund or retirement or anything like that, right? So you want to really start to stick to this stuff because it can allow you to break it down, right? I mean, it's it's simple, but it just takes a little bit of time, and it's something that can sometimes scare people, right? So sit there and say, okay, what is 32,000 divided by 12? Right, so it's like repeating. Okay, so like this is what my monthly budget's gonna be then. Okay, so if I'm sitting here, I need to look at these expenses and say, okay, here's what I can actually spend on. So let's go ahead and erase our actual expenses and then put our things in and kind of budget it out, right? We'll create a fake budget right now. The 32,000 is like the income. This is salary. Maybe I'll put salary up here or something. Salary. Monthly. Good call. So you might look at that, right? Guest and actual. See, but that's the thing. People at 32K a year can worry about emergency funds or retirement. And that's why this is very important, and that's why I harp on this and bring it up, because it's not something that's impossible, right? Would it be crazy to use Excel instead of MS Paint? No, but I like being able to draw with a pencil. That's the difference. So let's say that this is right. This is what your actual is. Your car is actually $450. You know, and you get your food down. You know, okay, I'm gonna bring my food down to that. I'm gonna do 100 here. I'm gonna do 100 here, and I'm only gonna give 2,000. No, you know, you sit there and put your $5 for your sub or whatever it is. This is your after tax. I should put as well. Yeah, I'm a paint guy. Right, so then we can add this all up. Bingo, bango, bongo. And our total is 1,000, 1,850, 1920. What are we at? 2055? Does that look right? So this is our total here. And so this leaves us with 500 something here that we can put towards our student loans, whatever it is. And okay, so you're paying $1,300 in student loans a month. That's something, the minimum yearly wage in my state is 18,700 or something like that, 18,700. If you're just on a minimum, working only one job 40 hours a week on minimum, that's going to be difficult. And in that case, I would say you want to increase your income, whether it's adding in a second job, whether it's, you know, that's going to be definitely a tougher situation right there. And if you're sitting there and you're saying, I'm paying $1,300 in loans a month, I need to figure out how I can do that. Well, the first thing you might have to do is get a roommate or 2 or 5, whatever it is, so you can bring this puppy down to, you know, $400 a month, something like that, right? You're going to have to do something if you're paying that much in loans. But we'll just pretend like that's not the thing, right? So in this case, let's say it's 2055 and you're making this. You should be able to see at the end of every month $500 in your hand. You should be able, not in your hand exactly, but you should be able to see $500 going into some sort of account, whatever it is. And this is why these budgets become very important, and why you need to think about miscellaneous, and why you need to think about, right, can you rent out rooms? Exactly, talking to. Why you need to think about things of that nature, because it's important to know, because a lot of times what happens is people say, here's my actual budget, at the end of the month I'll have $500, and at the end of the month they have 0 left, and they're like, I don't know where it went. You need to go look at your expenses and say, where did I overspend? Did I accidentally get, you know, drunk and spend an extra $200 here, and then spend an extra $300 here because I was drunk from the 200? Maybe, right? You need to look at that. Have I gone through any financing courses? I do a lot of just personal studying of it. So kind of, I mean, I've taken some like classes, but a lot of this is me online. I study this a lot, way more than I should. It's like fun to me. So, but yeah, so you want to You want to sit there and you want to think about what has, where is that money gone and how can I reduce it, save it, whatever, because I need to look at this, subtract this, and at the end of the day, I need to have $511.60. Sorry, $611. I don't know why I'm doing such terrible math. That's a 6. Just pretend that that's a 6 and not, I don't even know what that's supposed to be. So this is what you need to be able to find. And whether you're taking this out early, after, whatever it is for savings, it needs to be found. And this is why budgeting is so important, right? So you can sit there and say, okay, this is what I should have at the end of the month. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up some sort of retirement account. And we'll get into those later. But I'm going to take out $600 a month. I'm just going to let's just put a new thing here. I'm just going to do this. Boom. Retirement. I'm just going to say $600. Done, right? Just like that, we've now added a new budget in there, and I'm going to take it right out of my salary at the start, and it could actually help with taxes if I take it out of whatever. We'll get to that point later. But this is what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to sit there, know where your money's going, know what's happening, and then see that kind of in the future. And you can budget based on that. And we'll get into the investing and why investing is great in the future. But for now, this is kind of where that is. So things, once again, just to really kind of look at some examples. Let's say that I do have, student loans, and student loans are terrible, right? I have to pay $1,000 a month in these stupid things. I need to find a place to really wipe this out. Like my rent has to go down, my car has to go down, my food, maybe I cook at home more, whatever it is. Less alcohol, maybe we'll keep that. We got to keep the important expenses. But you want to try and knock these things down. Can I rent out a room? Can I get a roommate? Maybe I can sell my car and get a car, just ride a bike, right? Maybe I can get a car that's cheaper. I drive a car that is 14 years old and has 200,000 miles on it, and I don't have a car payment on it because it was fully paid off a while ago. So that's just my car. I just drive around in my car. I have to pay for gas and repairs and whatever. But overall, it ends up kind of saving money in that case, as opposed to if I went out and bought a brand new car. So you have to just think, what am I going to be doing with it, right? And this is where knowing those expenses is very helpful, because you can sit there and you can look and you can see if you can afford things. You can sit there and you can say, okay, so let's pretend the student loans don't exist. I have an extra $600 a month, and I want to be putting some into savings and some into my 401k and some of this. Can I get a new car that's going to add another $250 to my car bill? Because my insurance is going to go up, my car payment's going to go up, right? Can I afford this? I can. Is it the best idea after my retirement and stuff, right? All of a sudden we have the retirement fund, and I want to put $500 in there, let's say. Okay, maybe not, right? So you can gauge these things and you can see what's kind of best. So let's get our crappy eraser, and there has to be a better way. Can I just box delete? Oh my god. Okay, that's so much better. Okay, so moving forward. So since we talked a little bit about loans, let's talk about more kinds of debts, right? Debts. That was a little smile. Shouldn't be a smile. Should be right here. There you go. Debts. So different kinds of debts, right? You have your loans. That is not how you spell loans. You have credit cards. You have mortgage. Right, you have different kinds of your debt here, and this is $40K a year seems like a struggle. It can be. Once again, this is why you might have to figure out certain things, right? Figure out alternatives, what ways that I can lower it. Maybe I need to be a little bit cheaper in my food. Maybe I should cook more, right? I can do meal prep, just like I've done some of my meal prep like YouTube videos and stuff or Twitch streams, and that's an easy way to save a lot of money. I get great I get great macros, so I've got good protein, good carb, I've got everything in there, right? Healthy foods, and overall pretty cheap because I've spread it out across 8 meals. And if you do that a few times every week, start of the week, every Sunday, you make your meals for the whole week, whatever it is, you can cut down your food expenses so much. And you don't have to, my food budget goes up because I go out for lunch with my team at work, or I, go to a dinner, or I'm being lazy and I just buy whatever it is. Those sorts of things can easily increase your food budget. So, look at ways that you can kind of knock that down. So anyways, back to debts. So you have different kinds of debts, and the important things to note about these is your annual percent APR, APY, which is it? APR, right? What's the R stand for again? Annual percentage rate. There we go. Sorry. Right. So the APR, right? This is the important thing to know. And this is the very important thing to know if you are trying to tackle things like loans in specific ways. Yeah, rate. Thank you. So let's say something like, let's go with loans first. Let's say I have student loans, because I'm sure a lot of people have student loans. So the first thing we have is we have a loan number 1, we'll call it. Loan number 2, we're getting really original. And loan number 3. Okay? And our first loan is going to be for $30,000. Our second loan is going to be for $10,000. And our third loan is going to be for $5,000. And you want to say, what percentage am I having to pay on these loans? Maybe I'm paying 6% on that one, 7% on that one, and 3% on the final one, whatever it is, right? So APY would be correct because it's the actual annual rate. All right, cool, whatever. So you're looking at your loans right here, and you say, how should I pay these off? Because I have to pay these off. Such high percents. Hey, some loans are 6, 7. That's pretty common, I think. 6, 7% loans. I've seen plenty of my friends with that high percentages. So here's the knowledge bomb, right? There's a few ways to pay these off. The best way that you can pay these off is by just paying them off, right? And that sounds stupid, right? That sounds really dumb, but whatever way works best for you, tackle that way, even if it's not the most efficient. If you sit here and say, you know what, Mr. Lama, I want to tackle this loan first because then I only have 2 loans left. I'll say, if you're going to get that loan, get rid of it. Cool. Great. Pay it off. That's awesome. I'm very happy for you to pay it off. Okay. And then you'll tackle this one, and then you'll tackle this one, and I'll say, that's fine. Pay it off. The most efficient way, though, is to look over here. This needs to go right there. Is to look over here and look at these percentages, because these percentages are what you're paying in addition to, right, for that loan. So you're going to sit there and say, okay, every year, this loan right here is going to add $700. We'll just say the first year, okay? This loan right here is going to add $700. But the next year, it's going to add $700 more, plus 7% of 700, right? And this is compounding interest, and we'll jump into this very soon. But let's just kind of take it for what it is right now. This adds 700. This adds, oh God, I don't want to do too much math. 150. Why did I make these numbers not smart? And this adds 1,800. Okay, right. So this is how much you're going to be paying on each of these loans after the first year. We're just going to go 1 year out. 1 year out. This is the extra that you're paying on these loans. So you might say, well, Mr. Lama, well, now that I look at that, you've made a lot of sense. I need to pay this first loan off because that has added 1,800. That's the most of all of these, right? But that's wrong because it's a percentage of the total, and you have to pretend like all money is the same, right? Money is the same all over the place. So 1,800 right here, if you pay this loan off first, you'll actually save a little bit more. And we'll get to credit cards and stuff like that. Don't worry, you guys are bringing up good points. We'll get to that stuff. This right here is going to save you the most money by knocking out this loan first, because you're knocking out the highest percentage, and that is right there what you want to get rid of. Highest percentage you want gone. You would pay, so the best order to pay these off would be to pay off this 7% loan, then pay off this 6% loan, and then pay off this 3% loan, because you're just knocking out percentages. You have to look at percentages as positive and negative in kind of a branching way. So the higher percentages that I'm getting money for, the better. The lower percent or the higher percentages that I'm paying money for, the worse, the better for them, right? So you always want to be paying off that highest percentage, and even if it's not always going to be paying off the one that's the biggest number or the one that is the smallest loan to get rid of the loan, doesn't matter. Highest percentage is going to be your best bet. So that's one way to kind of look at some loans right there. An additional thing, now we've got, so that's student loans, right? That's basic kind of student loan stuff there. Now let's go to something like a mortgage. And mortgages are fun. So fun. Wait, I just want a box. How do I just, shapes. Give me a shape. Beautiful. And that depends, Lion, based on, I mean, that's risk right there that you have to kind of think and assume and whatever. So there is times where you might sit there and say, I'm fine with it. And this is something with a mortgage, right? A mortgage is where you are sitting there and you are accepting a large amount of debt. So you're saying, let's say you buy a $200,000 house and your percentage is 4%, right? You are accepting that you are going to be paying this 4% over time, whatever, on the $200,000. Let's say the loan, your house was $250,000. You put down $50,000, $200,000 left. That's going to be your loan. That loan is at 4%. You are accepting this interest right here and essentially just saying, I'll pay this out over whatever it is, 30 years, whatever the time is, right? So I'm doing this for fun. So it's something that you're taking on and you're accepting, and there are ways that you can maybe lower it. Let's say you did a 15-year, right? And you could say, okay, I'll do a 15-year at 3.5%. But this is something that you want to be careful with, and you can simply do with a 30-year loan in another way, sort of, right? So you can sit there and say, okay, let's say I want to not be too confusing because I know I'm going in a couple directions here, but let's say that I have a 30-year loan. I can make extra payments on that and essentially push it down to a 15-year loan, which will save me a lot of money in interest, right? So on a $200,000 house, over 30 years, I mean, look, we can do it. We can just get a calculator. Mortgage total payment calculator. Let's go look. This will be easier than me actually trying to do the math on it. Let me do this really quick. Let's go. Where's the calculator at? Come on now. I don't want to compare mortgage offers. Just take me to the... Okay. All right, there we go. I got it. So mortgage amount, that, 30 years, interest rate 4%, and perfect. So your total payment, wow, that's actually exactly what I was going to guess. Okay, so your total payment is going to be about $343,000. I didn't rip last night. I'm still alive. What are you talking about, boss one shot him? My character is still alive. Anyways, regardless, getting back to this. So simply by paying back $200,000 over 30 years, I'm going to be paying $343,000. But this is over 30 years, and so I'm kind of accepting the fact that the money that I would be putting into this, I can put other money into. Let's say I had $200,000 sitting in my bank account. Okay, let's say I just had $200,000 sitting in my bank account. I could either go here and say I'm just going to wipe out this loan completely and make one massive payment and be done with it, or I can accept the fact that, yeah, I'll pay $343,000, but I think if I put that money in the market, 200K in the market, I'm going to say I'm going to hope it makes 7%, and that I would then end up making more money than this $343,000. So it actually could be better to invest that money, right? So maybe taking that 4% isn't the worst deal out there, right? So there's something with investing, and once again, we'll get into that a little bit later. But I want to bring it back to kind of you're going to be paying a little bit more right here. So what you can do with a 30-year loan is you can start making double payments, and you can actually drop this number down. You can sit there and say, well, I want to invest a little bit more into my house here, so I'm going to start making double payments on this, bringing the principal of this down faster, and by doing that, I'm actually going to drop the total amount down as well. That is not rent, that is a mortgage. This is a mortgage right here. So I'm actually going to drop this down right there. So what you could do, and this is why I bring up the 15-year, you could also get a 15-year where you're paying only like 3.5%, so it's a little bit better, but this is going to cost a lot more money, right? So I might only pay $700 a month for this 30-year, but I might be paying $1,400 a month, or $1,300, let's say, a month for the 15-year. And if I suddenly lose my job, something like that, now it's a lot harder to pay this $1,300. Whereas if I'm over there working on the 30-year and I'm making double payments, I can just take off that second payment if I lose my job or something happens, and I can just sit there, right? So the different rates can apply, and it's something to think about in terms of your total budget and everything like that. But whatever. So something that's fun and that I want to get into before we talk about credit cards is the buy versus rent. This is my favorite thing ever, and here's my favorite quote I always hear. This is my favorite quote. Renting is just throwing your money away, because it's super wrong. It's the most wrong thing ever, but it's the most wrong thing that people who really think they know finances say, right? They're like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. Renting's stupid because you're not investing in your property, right? When I buy a house, I'm investing in my property, and and you guys are just throwing it away, right? So what you want to do is you want to really think about, and every place has a number. For instance, where I live, it's about $850. So at $850, and this is after calculating all of the things, right? Thank you. This is after calculating all of the things. So let's go to, okay, there we go. So let's say that on one side, on my side, I pay rent, I pay internet, I pay insurance. Okay, this is my rent side. On my buy side, I pay mortgage, I pay all the bills. For me, I don't have any other bills besides internet. I pay insurance, I have HOA, I have maintenance cost, etc. Right, there are a lot more costs that are associated with a house. Additionally, what am I doing now? It's like, am I mowing the yard? Am I paying people to come mow my yard? There's, I have to pay for like my AC bills and stuff now. Maybe I don't have to pay for that in my apartment. Additionally, there's other factors that are non-financial, such as do I lose mobility with it? And you can say buying a house is an investment, And that is true, but you have to look at opportunity cost, and I'm happy you bring that point up, right? So one of my favorite things to do right here is this exact thing I'm going to do. It just makes me so happy. That's not the best line. There we go, a little bit better. Something like that. That's still not the best line. I'm gonna make it a little bit better. There we go. That's a better line. Interest. I'm just gonna type this one. I don't want to write it out. Principal. Cool. So this right here is a wonderful graph, and I'm going to label my axes years and money. Okay, these are my axes right here. So first off, it's an investment that might go bad, right? You don't know that your house is going to go up in prices. You purely don't know. Homeowners Association, sorry. You're hoping it will, and a lot of times it's a safer bet, but I mean, look at the bubble bursting in 2008, right? Houses don't always go up. Sometimes the neighborhoods turn into not as great of a neighborhood. Sometimes they build a freaking dump right next to your house. That literally just happened to my parents. They had a house, and I'll go through the graph in a second. They had a house, great house, going up in value, and then the city decided to put a dump in nearby and to keep raising it, and they were like, we're getting out of here because the value of the house is going to start going down, right? Trailer park opens up nearby. Everything like that. You don't always know what's going to happen. It's an investment. You're hoping it does, but you don't know. So what you want to see right here, and what's so important about this, is how much you are actually investing in your house. How much you're actually investing in your house and how much you're actually getting in principal right here, right? So this is going to be the life of your loan. So this right here is 30, right? At the end of 30 years, I will have paid X amount of dollars, and this is going to be, I will now own my entire house, right? I will have the full principal. So this is your payment right here. This is your payment, I suppose. When I say money, I mean your payment. So I will have the full principal of my house. After 30 years, when this loan's fully gone, I will own everything that is my house. Until that point, though, I'm going to be owning less and less of it, and the earlier I am in paying for this house, the less I'm going to own, right? So let's take this $200,000 house for example. Let's just say, or $200,000 loan, 4%, right? So that's going to be, what, $8,000 a year? Right? So I'm paying $8,000 a year, something like that, in principal cost, or the base cost. And that's not exactly, because there'll be monthly payments. Okay. So let's back that off. Let's back up again. Let's just go to monthly payments. So I'm just going to figure out my monthly payment there. What's 8,000 divided by 12? I should know that math, but I'm tired. It's late. 66. Did I do that right? 660? Hold up. 660? Is that it? Anyways. Okay, so I owe $666 a month in interest. Right? Or not in interest, in mortgage payment. Okay. So I owe this much in a mortgage payment. So I sit there and I pay it off, and I say, boom, first month comes up, I pay it off. That means that I should now have $199,340 left, right? That's how much I have left to pay on my loan, and I should have $660 in principal. What actually happens is not that, because the first thing that happens is you have the interest hit. So the first thing that happens is you say, okay, well, what is the interest of this? And that then goes up. So now my loan is going to go up first, and then I'm going to make the payment to start pushing it down. And I think I've done this math a little backwards, a little broken. So what should happen here is I should go up to 200,660, right? And then I'm going to be making whatever my payment is off of that amount. And so I might be paying like $700 on that payment. And so at the end of that first payment, I'm going to have no money, right? No like principal. All of my money has simply dropped down my payment a tiny bit. So at the end of this, I might have like $199,900 left to pay on my loan. And you're like, but wait a second, I just paid $660. That's not how it works, right? You have a payment here of $760, let's say, and $760, and you only get $100 in principal. And that's where this graph works, right? So first, you're going to be getting nothing in principal. All your money is going to be going just to pay the interest off. Then as this number continues to go down and down, you're going to start getting more and more and more and more in your principal and less payment towards the interest. So this is why holding a house for a while can actually be beneficial, and buying and selling a house pretty quickly and pretty immediately can actually be financially really not great, because you'll sit there and after 5 years or whatever, you're like, I'm moving, right? You're like, I'm going to sell this off and I'm going to move. Well, this is all the principal that you have. You own very little of your house and you still have a giant mortgage payment, and the reason is because all this money you've been paying in interest. And this right here, all of this interest payment right here is rent, right? This is the people who say renting is throwing your money away. This is all of the money that's being thrown away. Additionally, so is the homeowners association, so is the extra insurance, so is the maintenance that you're having to do, right? All of those things is also being thrown away. And then once again, something like opportunity cost. Let's say that you have, let's say I have $50,000 today. Wow, I have $50,000. All right, great. I like this scenario already, right? So let's say that I have $50,000 today. If I go and immediately put that as a down payment on a house, I've now taken all of the opportunity cost away from that money. Instead, if I had $50,000 and I went and put it into the market, that money could then be earning and growing from the market's gains, right? So I would be losing the opportunity there, and instead I would be investing it in the property, once again, hoping the property does go up. Maybe, right? Don't know. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm bringing on something called PMI, which is just another way that they can charge you for simply not putting down enough money when you initially purchase the house, right? So there's so many ways that buying can cost a lot of money. Only llama coins go up. That's right. Invest now. But there's so many ways that you can not or be throwing away money essentially, right, over here from having this house as opposed to from renting. And this is why renting is not this sunk cost that just exists and is just the worst thing ever, right? So for me, like I said, $850. I've worked out the math. I've gone through all of that. Private mortgage insurance, yes, thank you. I've worked out all of the math, and $850. If I pay less than $850 in rent, and this is assuming that my house is going to grow as well in its amount, right? Thank you, Esroy, for the biddies. This is assuming that I'm going to be growing my house as well. So I'm sitting there saying my house value is going to go up 3% every single year. And that, something like that, right? Whatever the numbers are that I put in there. I do all of that stuff. And now $850 is what it comes out to be. So if I am paying less than that in rent, then it makes more financial sense for me to rent. If I'm paying more in that in rent, it makes more financial sense for me to own. And once again, this isn't going to be your entire portfolio, or your entire reasoning behind all of this. You might sit there and say, I really want a home because I want a yard. I have a dog that I really want to have a yard, and I want to have all that. My kids love going outside. I hate living in an apartment. You know, I need a lot of space, and I like to make a lot of noise, and I like to have my own space for it. And so, you know what? Even though I could pay $600 in rent here, it's worth it to me to buy a house. Additionally, it might be the other way around. Rent may be $900 a month, but I might say, you know, I don't know if I'm going to stay here long enough. Maybe I'm only going to be here 2-3 years, right? Maybe I'm just going to be sitting here, rent a house. You could do that as well, right? And I don't know if I want to own a house and have to deal with all the maintenance of it. So it's still worth it to me to pay rent. And okay, we say, but you don't gain any equity when you rent. I don't see your logic in renting. The equity gained is within the money that exists that's not going over here. Okay? That's what it is. So instead of me paying all of this money into interest and into fees and insurance and all of this stuff, I'm taking that money and investing it elsewhere. And that's the big difference, right? So this, I'm always throwing money away. In both cases, you're throwing the money away, right? I'm either throwing it at rent, or I'm just paying for the place to live, or I'm throwing it at interest and fees and all of that stuff. And so both sides, money is getting thrown away. The thing is, what are you doing with the other money? I'm either investing it in the principal of my home, or I'm investing it into retirement accounts and savings accounts and putting it in the market and things like that, right? So it's going to be one of the two that's going to be happening. Uh-oh, hold up, my battery's dying. Is it charging now? Gosh dang it, is this thing not plugged in? Hold up. Don't die on me. Oh, God. What?